Toxic masculinity. When the phrase comes up, men roll their eyes, suck their teeth, and take deep breaths of exasperation. For some, the phrase toxic masculinity is an overused buzzword that women use to quote-unquote weaponize men, when in fact, the phrase not only has a definition, but also holds substantial weight mentally, physically, emotionally, and culturally. In the Black community specifically, there is this looming sense of urgency when it comes to the idea of quote-unquote being a man, which of course, in and of itself, is toxic. Recently, I stumbled upon an interview between Mike Tyson and Lil Boosie, who, based on their backstories, not only participated in toxic masculinity, but they basked in it. Lil Boosie truly expected to get into the booth and talk cash shit with the infamous Mike Tyson. But to his surprise, Boosie was welcomed almost immediately with a hefty slice of, nigga, we have shit we need to talk about. In this interview, Mike Tyson, ever so eloquently, might I add, proceeded to drag Boosie for his behavior on social media, which, if you haven't been paying attention, has been super loud and super wrong. In doing so, Tyson described himself, and I'm paraphrasing, as an insecure kid who was always afraid and didn't think he was worthy of love. That kind of self-awareness coming out of Mike Tyson, who, when I was a child, was known for beating women, being a tank fighter with a monstrous body, and biting off Evander Holyfield's ear. So hearing him being this self-aware truly singed my eyebrows. But that sentence about not feeling worthy of love made me think. Mike Tyson is not nearly the first Black man to express the feeling of worthlessness, even if it wasn't necessarily verbally. It also made me wonder, is toxic masculinity in the Black community a rite of passage into manhood? Or is it a mush of hurt and anger that's being protected in a Batman suit? Even though you hurt us, Black women see ourselves in you. And we know the pain that you go through. And so we'll nurture you with everything we got so that you can rise above. Nobody asked me, but Black men, you are worthy of love.
Let's give them something to talk about. How about love? Love us good. I can't dig it.
Welcome back to another episode of Nobody Asked Me But. It is a new year, a new season, and we're just going to jump right in. So this particular interview really blew my mind because it made me think about the hip hop community. It made me think about a lot of my guy friends, and it made me think about a lot of the issues that you'll find people talking about on Twitter or on Clubhouse. And they're often labeled as the gender wars, right? So the gender wars, I think, of course, they have their place. I do think that there's a lot of things that cis-het gender men and women do to each other that aren't necessarily the best. But I do understand where, Black women are coming from when we say we're tired of your shit, But I'm realizing, especially through this interview, that it's deeper than what's on the surface. And by that, I mean, it's deeper than just, the stuff that comes out of Black men's mouth verbally, that just comes out at your first conscience. The stuff that, that you're watching all day, that you are feeding yourself with, a lot of it, I think, is stuff that you just have seen. And so you're repeating it. But when I watched that interview with Lil Boosie and Mike Tyson, it made me think really deeply about how hurt a lot of Black men are. And I realized, of course, that despite what people think, despite the fact that we are 500 years past slavery, it is inept. It is engraved in our very being. And it comes a lot from how we carry ourselves. It comes from a lot from how we think and how we move. And a lot of that makes sense. So why do I bring that up? I realize that it starts from there. And those are wounds that we as a community are working on tackling, and we're working on healing through it. But because a lot of us are like, well, I don't see myself as a victim, and that was 500 years ago, and we should have rebelled, and we should have done this. That doesn't really access the fact that we are still dealing with a lot of the aftermath of what that's caused us. So we all know that, you know, Black men and Black women equally had different but very severe traumatic issues when it comes to slavery as it relates to slave masters. We understand that fathers were ripped away from their families. We understand that young boys were often beaten and forced to procreate with relatives. We also understand that procreation happened at a very, very, very young age sometimes. And there was a lot of selling and trading. We understand that. We know those things. But how it comes up for us today is the word strength comes to mind. So all of those things that I have mentioned, right? If you think about through the centuries and through the decades of how that's come up, where dads will leave homes and take care of other families or go do whatever it is that they want to do because of any number of reasons. They are addicted to drugs. So if they're addicted to drugs, then maybe that's connected to some traumatic thing that they never healed and they feel bad about it. And so they start doing something like that. Or they don't feel like they are adequate enough professionally because their careers haven't taken off to a specific way. It could be any number of things. I mentioned drug and work because those are severe things, but these are things that come up for us. And a lot of times you'll talk to men about relationship with their moms or relationship with their parents, or relationship with their family in general. And it's very short answered. And you ask them and it's like they never cried about it. They never thought about it enough to really be heartbroken enough about it. And like the rest of us, like all of us do, instead of saying, I need a second, I'm sad, this hurt my feelings, it becomes internalized, I believe. And that internalization can manifest all types of unfortunate behavior. Mike Tyson talked about being a fighter his entire life. He fought here, he fought there, he would steal, he was nasty, he just was, everywhere. And in his life in particular, it's because I believe he mentioned something about his mom not quite being mentally stable herself and having her own issues. And of course, him also not necessarily having a father in his life as well. And so it just kind of caused him to just be on his own. And with him being on his own, with all of that going on in the back of your brain, of course you're going to be angry about it, right? That seems logical. It makes sense that if something happened to you in anywhere in your life, it could have happened to you when you were 2, it could happen to you when you're 10, it could happen to you when you're 25, it could happen to you when you're 50. If something traumatic happens to you, any sane human being, or not even sane, any living, breathing, functioning, I should say, human being would be affected by a traumatic event. It only makes sense. It makes sense that you would be affected by it. It makes sense that you would be sad about it. It makes sense you would be angry about it, because those feelings are natural. Those feelings come from a actual place, and they absolutely move through your spirit. They move through your mental space. They move through your body. They move through your relationships with people. And so to have those emotions is perfectly natural and perfectly normal, right? Where it gets cloudy is what to do with those emotions past that. So a lot of times I'll see dads, and I'll see dads with their sons. And that's a beautiful, if anyone's ever seen fathers in general, but Black dads and their children, it's just an amazing thing to see. They're just playful, and they're happy, and there's so much joy, and there's jokes. And it's just one of the most, amazing feelings to see Black fathers in action. And every now and again, I'll see a Black dad with their Black son who's under 10. So like maybe 5 or 7. And something happens to them and they start crying. And so often, instead of saying, it's okay, or giving a hug, or are you okay? Or, let's talk about, do you want to talk about it? It becomes toughen up, stop crying. You're showing weakness. No one wants to see those tears. Toughen up. You're okay. You're okay. And that for them will come off as encouraging, because you want them to not feel like they have to cry over every little thing that happens. But what also happens with that sometimes, a lot of times, is you don't get to honor feeling sad. You don't get to honor, you learn to not honor feeling that emotion. And crying becomes a act of wrongdoing as opposed to an act of healing. And really, the truth is there's strength in vulnerability. If you are able to release some of that stuff and cry it out, you'll feel better. You might not feel better immediately, but you can kind of release some of that emotion. And you can kind of release some of the thought process behind why you were upset. And that's okay. That's where the strength is. The strength is in releasing it. The strength is in honoring your body. The strength is in honoring your tears, because those tears are powerful. I used to cry all the time. And it would come with, well, why are you crying? Or do you look how stupid you look when you cry? And that hasn't stopped me. Okay. There are pictures of me crying, and I don't care. I had to come to those terms, and but I cry a lot. I don't necessarily like to cry in front of people per se, because I kind of feel like it's a private moment. But, when it comes up, and that's it. And I don't feel weak. And of course I'm not a man. It's not about me. But what I'm saying is that you're not expected to show the emotion that you're feeling, because for some reason, if you show that emotion, you have lost your strength. And I'm here to tell you that that's wrong. There is strength in vulnerability. And that vulnerability is beautiful. And I have to be honest when I say, I don't know if Black men necessarily consider themselves beautiful. And if they do consider themselves beautiful, it might be in a different way of which women consider themselves beautiful. And I genuinely think if Black men thought of themselves as beautiful more often, it would help move through some of the drama, help move through some of the complications and the complexities of your thought process. What do I mean by that when I say you don't think of yourselves as beautiful? Okay, so beautiful can be something that's just pretty, right? Like something that look to the pleasing to the eye to the highest degree. It's colorful, it's dainty. But what I mean really by beautiful isn't so much on the surface, although that is helpful. But we're talking about sensitivity. We're talking about gentleness. We're talking about tenderness. We're talking about being able to see yourselves as a beautiful human being, as a beautiful person, as a person that is of a higher power, whichever that is for you, and is created specifically, wonderfully, and beautifully. And I think, men think of that about women a lot. You'll hear a lot of times men will say that women are the most beautiful creatures of the earth and we are able to create life. And, there's nothing that's more pure. There's nothing that's more indescribable. Women are the most beautiful thing. And they ain't lying. We are. We absolutely are. But, we came, if we're talking about biblically, we came from you. So yeah, we are the most beautiful creatures in the world. I ain't lying about that at all. But also, you're part of that. You have that kind of beauty. You have that kind of gentleness. You have that kind of tenderness. And that's across the board. I'm not really just talking about cis-het gendered men. I'm talking about trans men, gay men, bisexual men, cis-het gendered men. I'm talking about anybody who identifies as a man in the Black community and who is a man who identifies as a Black man in the Black community. That kind of beauty isn't just held for Black women. It's not just for us. It's for you guys too. And I think when you guys walk in that and stand in that, it can be something as small as doing something nice for your brain. A little yoga, right? So, okay, people do yoga for balance and they do it for censorship, they do it to be centered and all that. That's great. But really, it's just a matter of, hey, I need a second to rewire some stuff, work through some stuff, and be nice to myself. It's about talking to yourself in a way that is positive. You know what I'm saying? It's about being nice to yourself on the inside because you are a beautiful person. And with the yoga just kind of helps you silence it. And now you can put it to your body. You can stretch it out through your fingers. You can stretch it out to your feet. And of course, there's lots of physical aspects and benefits behind yoga. And this is just one example. But even in meditation, you know what I'm saying? Even in just keeping it still, getting it into, and I understand that it sounds like a whole bunch of woo and I ain't got time for that shit. Da, 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 da. Make time for it. Make time for that. Even if it's you roll your blunt first thing in the morning, nice ice cold glass of orange juice. Make yourself a playlist of a morning playlist that just starts it off positive and, write some stuff down. You're constantly writing down raps. You're constantly writing down all this other stuff or texting people, whatever. Take it slow. Write 5 things down that makes you happy today. 5 things you're grateful for. It don't have to be long, But it just starts the process of, hey, this life is beautiful that I have, and it's short. I'm grateful for it. I'm a good person. You know, I've made mistakes and I've said sorry for them, or I'm working towards them. And maybe my sorry wasn't enough. And I'll keep saying sorry for it until, you know, the person feels more comfortable. And I just believe that the sooner men take the initiative behind loving themselves and what that really, and really being clear about what that means for them, is the sooner they'll be able to start loving us. And that's a big deal, because Black women love Black men. I know that's a general statement. I know a lot of us have our issues with our friends, cousins, brothers, uncles, boyfriends, husbands, ex-husbands, you name it, godfathers. But generally speaking, we love you and we'll do anything for you. But we are coming into a space where our love has a limit. And that's all right, because we can't be your punching bag every single time you're lashing out, or the world has put so much stuff on top of you and you need a place to dump it. You see, even though we are encouraging you to be better and we want you to be a whole human for yourself and for us too, but mainly for yourself, we're not your garbage cans. You can't just dump your trash on us because that's what we're there for. Because really, it's not what we're here for. And we nurture you because we want to, but not because we have to. You still need to do your work. And that's period. That's on period. You know, we're here to help you guide through it. We're here to help you feel better about it, you know, work through it in some capacities. Yes, but not in every capacity. And honestly, we're not obligated to do so because of the fact that, you know, we have choices. There are plenty of people, I'm sure, that either we've dated or we were friends with, and we might have experienced and sat through a lot of trash, a lot of annoyances, a lot of weird interactions. And we might have absolutely have gone on about our lives because we deserve to do that. Does that mean that you haven't had the opportunity to fix it and be better? No. Everybody has that opportunity. But it doesn't mean that we get to sit through it and take all of the abuse just because, you know, you said so. It doesn't work like that. And really, the work never stops. It never stops. You're not going to go to one therapy session in 6 months, come out and be like, okay, I'm all finished. You're not. Because there's always going to be something that comes up. There's always going to be something that you need to work through. There's always going to be something that you're going to need to make it through to the next level. And it's just important. It's just so important for you to do that hard, really introspective work. Because if you don't do it, it will spill out into your relationships and it will spill out into your children. And your children will grow up thinking this is the way that you're supposed to live. And this cycle will continue on and on and on and on and on and on again. And you have the opportunity to stop it. Now, what does that mean? It means you have to step outside of yourself. It means you might have to stand up to your friends who might not have the tools, who aren't ready to get to a right place of, you can't talk to people like that. You can't say, you have to change that. You have to be willing to do that. And if you're not willing to do that, that's your business. That's your journey. But in your growth, it looks different, right? You have your opinions about gay men and trans men. There's nothing anybody can do about the thoughts in your head and what you say to yourself in your house with your friends or whatever. It's annoying, but that is the truth about it. But what you can stop doing is putting somebody else down, going out of your way to make sure that person feels how angry and how annoying and how against you, how much you disapprove of who they are and what they are, and calling it a lifestyle and this is an agenda. All of that stuff that you put on other people, all of that gunk, because you feel like you're helping somebody, you're not. You are not helping anything. All you are doing is perpetuating a narrative that just furthers somebody's being. And really what it is you need to check your own being. You just need to be cool with what you got going on, because I promise you, what another man is doing in their life and how they want to carry themselves and how they are, who they are showing up in the world, and who they are for themselves when they lay down at night and talk to God about it, has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. You should focus more on where you're at. You should focus more on, okay, I really reacted kind of crazy to this person. Why is that? Okay, I'm smoking 8 times a day. Everything, and listen, I am a weed advocate. I think it's excellent. But some of that stuff needs to get cleared up. I am dependent on something to make it through the day. Why is that? Wow. I just said to this girl, because she has been sleeping around with X amount of people, that she's a hoe and she is not worthy of love. Why is that? Wow. I'm really stuck on these double standards. Why is that? Work on you, King. That's a joke. But, all of that macho, machismo, all that stuff that everyone's like, that's gay shit. Get out of here. You should want to go get your feet and nails done because it's a nice experience. You don't have to ask for polish. Just make the effort. It doesn't have to be a thing that you're making it, because you're a beautiful creature. It's all right if you're feeling sensitive about it. Yeah, you got fired from your job. Okay, be sensitive about it. Take a couple of days. Figure out what's going on. Does that now give you the reason to come back and curse people out and scream through all types of stuff? What are we talking about? If you're angry, okay, great. How can we work through this anger in a way that's healthy, that doesn't have to spew into what other people got going on? How can we do that? Right? the interview with Mike Tyson and Lil Boosie, I'll put it in the description box. It was fascinating because when we finally got to some of the issues that Lil Boosie said that he had and some of the issues that Mike Tyson said that he had, it makes sense why you're angry. It makes sense why you got all this going on, but you have to do the work behind it so you can get to the other side of it. If every living, breathing Black man of any identity truly went to therapy and worked on being a good human, so many things would be different when it comes to us. And that's really just what it is. And I tend to think that when we don't get to see you exercise that kind of tenderness, and when we don't see you exercise that kind of emotional intelligence, it's because you don't think you're worth that. And you are. But you do have to work for it. And, you can't leave it for us to work on it for you because we have a lot of other things that we are working on. And we are very tired of being at the other end of your trauma. So, nobody asked me about Black men. You are worthy of love. And we're going to take a break and be right back. This episode of Nobody Asked Me But is brought to you by My House. If you're looking for a professional recording studio to record your music projects, podcasts, voiceover, or whatever your audio needs are for a reasonable price, look no further. Visit myhouse.com. That's myhouzex.com for more details. You can also follow them at My House on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for a free consultation. And a special shout out to Mr. Ash, the engineer, who mixed and edited our podcast. You can also follow him at VSHERX. They have some of the best engineers here at My House Recording Studios. So don't wait any longer to make your dream project a reality. Visit myhouse.com or call 929-900-6044 now. And let's get back to our show.
So what do you listen? Oh, this is what I want to say. How do you feel about other people's feelings? You offend a lot of people. You talk about fucking gay motherfuckers, homos, and faggots.
No. A lot of times I need to shut the fuck up. It's just.
Why don't you?
I don't know, man. It be hard.
Okay, welcome back to Nobody Asked Me But. If you have not watched the Mike Tyson and the Lil Boosie clip, I will leave that information at the bottom. That was a quote that we just heard from them. So, moving on to our Jet Beauties of the week.
Boom, dynamite. Boom, boom, dynamite. Our team is boom, dynamite. Boom, boom, dynamite. Our team is tick, 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 tick. Hold up. Wait a minute. Let me put some booty in it. Boom.
All right. So, our Jet Beauties of the week goes out to two women that are actually in partnership. So earlier this year, in the midst of the Black Lives Matter protests and with all of the Black artists making music about what was going on with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, there was a movement that had begun called The Show Must Be Paused. And it was actually started by a friend of a friend. Luther Young is my friend, and he is great friends with Brianna Agyemang, and her partner Jamilia Thomas actually came up with this movement. They were on the cover of Billboard magazine earlier this year for the Women in Music list for being executives, but they also, because they had started this movement in particular, then they went on to win Executives of the Year. So I'm just going to read a quick excerpt from Billboard.com. Here we go. The day a multi-billion-dollar industry stood still, that's how June 2nd, 2020 will always be remembered by those in the music business, thanks to the fearless impulse of 2 young Black female executives after Minneapolis police suffocated George Floyd in late May. Protests against racial injustice erupted nationwide. Friends Brianna Agyemang, 32, and Jamilia Thomas, 35, considered taking a day from work to vent their own frustration and anger. Instead, the New York natives turned their proposed time off into a movement, calling for a day of widespread reckoning, dubbed Blacked Out Tuesday by some supporters, as I was saying. Agyemang, who is a senior artist campaign manager at Apple's Platoon division, and Thomas, the senior director of marketing at Atlantic Records, took the entire industry to task for fostering systematic bias while historically profiting from Black music. Hashtag the show must be paused was launched. So needless to say, both of these women are incredible at their jobs, and took what could have been a day of kind of rest and reflection and turned it into something magical. And I just could not be prouder to even be an onlooker on the side and be like, I know that girl. But really, aside from that, it's because of Black women and Black executives like this that are doing the work that we're able to even be here and use our voice for something excellent. So Brianna Agyemang and Jamilia Thomas, thank you so much for your work. You girls are our Jet Beauties of the week. Woo, 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 woo. All right, moving on to our next Jet Beauty of the week. So Jimir Reece Davis, I don't know if anyone's heard of him as of yet, but he is like filmmaker, producer. And I was perusing around Twitter, and he had made a mix of Never Too Much by Luther Vandross, like underneath, and then the vocal was Kiss It Better by Rihanna. So of course, since then he's made several more, but he has been buzzing over the last few months. It's really nice to see, because every now and again, Twitter has this excellent, just incredible moment where you see a very sweet young person go from, being a regular Twitter patron to being a superstar overnight. It's really quite amazing to witness. Essentially, this mix catapulted him into alter stardom, and he had been recognized by Dr. Dre. He was able to he produced, I think this is a little bit before this, but he had produced a track for Division's more recent project. And get into this, Oprah Winfrey, he said on Twitter that he needed a new MacBook, so anyone that knew anyone, if they could send it his way. Oprah gosh darn Winfrey, okay, sent him a brand new, fully loaded laptop. And it's just like, it's just so nice to see someone else's dreams come true as well, because it's just like we can all do this together. And it's, as the old saying goes, like, God, I've seen what you've done for others. So our time is coming. But aside from that, we are just so happy to see Jimir Reece Davis do his thing and get the recognition that he deserves. And I know this is going to do so much for his career. He had also said that he had a really awful and tumultuous 2020, as a lot of us had. So this kind of spark that came very shortly before his 23rd birthday. Can you imagine at 23? You know what I was doing at 23? But it just is an amazing thing to see. So I'm just so happy to see his continued success play out on Twitter and play out for the public, because, we deserve, and there's enough room for everybody. So it's just quite nice. So Jimir Reece Davis you can follow him on IG at the official I Am Amorphous, and on Twitter, I Want Amorphous. Congratulations. You are also one of our Jet Beauties of the week. And last but not least, my final Jet Beauty of the week this week goes out to a beautiful singer who has been singing all over New York City. I've met her. My boyfriend has known her for years. So she's kind of our star, our regional star in New York City. But of course, she has been regional nothing, because she's performed overseas. She's performed all over. Beautiful, beautiful singer. She actually has she put a project out, I think, a little over 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago. And her voice is just refreshing. I love the tone. I love the tonality. I think she is incredible to look at, and she's just so much fun. We always call and talk and gab all the time, and she's just become like one of the new stars in my life, and I love her. And I want to give a shout out to Kennedy and the Kennedy administration. Now, they will be back soon, and actually Kennedy will be a guest on our show very shortly in the coming weeks. But I just wanted to say, Kennedy girl, you one of our Jet Beauties of the week. Woo, 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 woo. All right. So, having said that, kids, now we are going to go into the warm-up. So, each week we select an underground or up-and-coming artist to showcase their work. So if you or anyone you know has some new things that they want to spin or they want to promote, send your heat to N as in Nancy, B as in boy, A as in apple, M as in Mary, B as in boy, nbamb at somethin'els.com, and I just might play it on the show. So this week we have new heat from none other than my actual blood, first of her name, Miss T.S. Rose. She's dropping a project later on this year, and it's definitely starting to heat up. A lot of you heard on the airwaves the Take You Away earlier this summer, and I've been playing some other cuts from her upcoming projects on my when I'm DJing or sometimes on tributaries, and I can guarantee you that what's coming is just going to blow you away. So here is something from the project you can look out for later on this year. And this is Live from the Couch.
And it can't get better. No. But it can't get any worse. And it won't get better. No. But being let down could cause worse. So I'll sleeping day in, day out. Man, I miss the fun, hearing about the great things all my friends have done. My mind races, paces. Have I wasted time? The stress makes me rest my eyes. And you can fall in love. You could be a star. You could buy a house. You could buy a car. You could go to school. You could make the rules.
You can do it from the
And you can fall in love. You can
And that was T.S. Rose, Live from the Couch. So it's just a little snippet of that. I believe it will be released later on this month to be available on playlists and on Spotify and on SoundCloud. So definitely look out for the drop of that. But just a little sneaky peek for you. And now it is time for the lesson of the week. So the most recent season of The Real Housewives of Potomac is some of the best reality television that we have witnessed all quarantine season. There were birds, catfights, glasses thrown, hair pulling, and laminated binders. The timing of this drama this season could not have been better. But we weren't just here for the entertainment. As always, there was a lesson to be learned. You see, for 5 seasons, some of these women have used their powers to manipulate and gossip and instigate just so their proverbial status on the show can be upheld, which, of course, is indeed the general task of the entire Housewives franchise. Unfortunately for these women, however, they were not prepared for the public scalping that was in their midst. Monique only came to collect heads, and collect heads she did. The lesson of this week is, don't start no shit, won't be no shit.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
All right, kids, and that is another episode of Nobody Asked Me But. Can't wait to see you guys next week. Remember, we are seasonal now, so everything is pre-recorded. Thank you so much again to Mr. Ash, who does all of our producing and all of our recording. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Thank God this isn't live, huh?